and welcome to the second episode of Ye Olde Spider, a medieval superhero mashup game that I hope you're really going to like. And don't worry if you didn't see the first episode, you can watch it later, or I'll catch you up right after the intro. Hi folks, and welcome to Sharp Mountain Games. Here we talk about group role-playing games, solo role-playing games, and there are plenty of actual plays in the playlist. You can check out our print and PDF products at Amazon, Lulu, Drive-Thru, and Roll20, and they're all linked below. Let's get started, and we're glad you're here. Now, before I get started here, I want to say that if you like this medieval superhero kind of fantasy mashup, also there's a good series from Solo Spelunking, and I'm going to link to the first episode of his most recent series, and also Tabletop Wanderer has one. They're both kind of Batman-inspired. Solo Spelunkings is the Bat of Fallcrest, and Tabletop Wanderer is Alnor, the Shadow of Alnor. So I'll link that below because, heck, it doesn't cost me any money, and I think us micro-channels supporting each other is a good thing. And I know that Mage Hammer is supposed to have one out too, but it's not out as of the time I'm recording this. Maybe future me will change that. So I'm looking forward to that series too. So Ye Olde Spider is Parker Peterson, and this uses my own system called Streamlined Superheroes. And what you do, it's very easy and very familiar on purpose. You know, strength, dexterity, intelligence, charisma, you roll your d20 and you add your bonus. But if it's a stressful situation, like a fight or something like that, then you'd also roll for, basically it's an effect dice for powers and skills. So Parker Peterson is really best at wall crawling, so he'd roll a d12 to see his effect there. He can also ensnare with a d10, super strength d8, and he's also well-versed in alchemy and apothecary work. That's what he works as. So Parker Peterson lives in the medieval city of Sharpeton, and he was bitten by a magical spider that his father was given to study. Now, his parents have since passed, and he works as an apothecary by day and takes care of his aunt. But by night, he dons his outfit, his very spooky spider-themed outfit, and he tries to patrol the city and use his powers for good. And you can see I have this baseball card that I made up here. I also have a token. I might try that later. But for right now, we're going to have Parker be the blue, and we'll worry about the pink in just one second. Now, he's very early in his career, and last time, let me give you the rundown on last time. He tried to save a rich man who was being robbed in an alley. However, he was subdued by the robbers. Like I said, he's kind of early in his career. And the next night, he tried to foil a robbery in progress, and he did defeat the henchman. So it's not that he had no successes. But there was a small winged goblin, maybe standing about 3-4 feet tall, and he got away. And they were stealing spell components, and he said he was taking them to his master. Now, the following day, Parker went back and tried to get the spell shop owner, Stephen, to tell him what was stolen so he could get an idea of what was going on here, but to no avail. And he even tried to break in that evening, not to steal anything, but to check the inventory, feeling that he really needs to know what's going on here, but he failed that as well, and the town guards came and he had to run away. So, and I think this is really true to the source material. Obviously, it's inspired by a popular character. He is dejected. He's feeling very unsure about himself, but he's still worried about these goblins and this master, and who might that be? So he comes back to his apothecary shop, and if you know me and you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm pretty lo-fi. I just have these dominoes here to represent the counter here, and I do that on purpose because I want to encourage people to solo role play or any kind of role play. Group is certainly great too, but I don't want people to get caught up in I have to buy expensive miniatures. I have to get everything perfect, and I have to make this craft stuff. And you can. If you like to paint minis and you like to do crafting, wonderful. That's great. But please don't let it get in the way of actually playing the game. It's great as a hobby, but don't let it stop you or slow you down even. So he is there the next day. Like I said, he's dejected, but he has to go about his work. He has his business, and he has to support himself and his aunt, who he takes care of. And he's always very happy when a young lady comes into the store, Guinevere, and she works for Lord Jamestown. And she happens to actually come in this day. I need some powders for Lady Jamestown, some things that she might need. And he starts talking to her. I understand there's stuff, he's going on in the city. He's thinking maybe a lord would know something. And he's not trying to lie to her or to use her in any way. But he asks her, he says, what do you hear? What does Lord Jamestown say? And she says, well, Lord Jamestown, he's very worried about this flying devil that he has heard about. And Parker's ears go, he said, what do you mean flying devil? He says, oh, it's some flying man-sized creature or something. Parker then says, well, what do you mean, a flying man-sized creature? Oh, yes, he's always cursing out this spider character. He thinks maybe the spider and the devil person are working together, and this man-sized creature supposedly helps people. But he says, oh, that's how they gain their trust. That's how they gain a person's trust. So Parker's thinking about this. Is there somebody else in the area operating similar to him? Or is this a person who, stole these things from the apothecary or the goblin creature? He's just not sure. So he's going to ask her, well, do you know anybody that could help me? So I'm going to do a charisma roll for him. Let's see how he did. 9. In this system, you need a 10 or better to succeed. And let me just address it too. People might say, well, how about difficulty numbers? If it's especially difficult, you roll with disadvantage. If it's a little bit easier, you can roll with advantage, if that seems reasonable. So she says, oh, I don't think I'd be able to introduce you to Lord Jamestown. She says, he's not going to just talk to you. Why are you so interested in this? Let's do another charisma roll, see how he does. 11. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So he kind of makes up, he doesn't like lying to Guinevere. Obviously, he's attracted to her. She's a young person about his age. Like I said, she works for Lord Jamestown and Lady Jamestown. And he says, well, with my shop being an apothecary shop and they were stealing spell components, I worry they're going to break in here and maybe they were going to try to steal my wares. Maybe there's somebody else who could help us know what's going on here. And she says, oh, well, there is someone that I know. And she kind of has a little bit half smile. She says, young man of my acquaintance. Parker gets a little worried about that maybe. His name is Kent de Planay. And, I could introduce you to him. Maybe he'd be able to help you out. He's a town chronicler. He works for the king, and he's assigned in this area to write down and chronicle everything that goes on. Some things get passed on to the town crier, some of them don't. But he has to watch all the business stuff. And Parker says, well, why don't I accompany you over there? Why don't we do that now? And let's see what we can find out. So he closes up the shop. He has the little sign, back in half an hour or whatever. And they work their way across town and enter a little house here, a little building. Now, this is kind of a little bit more upscale neighborhood, a little bit more in the center of town. Parker's apothecary shop is, mid, let's just say. It's not necessarily it's not in the slums, but it's not in the super nice part of town. And working furiously at the desk, writing away. And in fact, Parker even thinks he sees the person slow down, like he was writing furiously, almost faster than a person should. And they enter, and he hears them, and he looks up. Oh, Miss Guinevere, I'm so glad to see you again. What brings you here? So she introduces Parker. She says, Parker is a friend of mine. I do a lot of business with him for my employers. And he just has some questions about, there's some recent crimes going on because he has a little shop and he's worried about that. And Parker introduces himself, and let's see how much information he can get out of Kent de Planay. 10. Okay, so that's good enough. That's good enough for a success. Now, we don't roll the effect dice in this situation usually because it's more of it's a non-stressful situation. The stress dice are only when you need to worry about hit points or things where, there could be a real consequences for failure here. Now, Kent de Planay is Very handsome, very broad fella. Dark hair, seems to have a little bit of a curl in the front that he has trouble keeping track of. And Parker introduces himself and seemed to come across as a very nice young gentleman. That was the charisma roll to kind of see how he would take it. And Kent says, well, maybe I can help you a little bit. He said, I can't divulge everything, about everything. I got to protect my sources. He kind of jokes. He says, but maybe I can help you a little bit. Let me get a sip of water here. Sorry you have to hear that. It's actually hard to do these without your throat drying out. So Parker and he talk, and Kent says, let's take a look here. And he gets a piece of paper and he draws a little map. He says, this is where I know there have been some break-ins. He said, now, I don't have a full list of everything stolen. A lot of the shopkeepers are kind of quiet about that. And they're kind of able to get a pretty good idea of where things might be happening. Now, I'm going to give Parker an intelligence roll to see, if he can look at this and really see a good pattern that's going to help them. 1. No. So he has a rough idea of the area, but he's not a detective. He gets a +1 on that, but that's a 2. So that's no help at all. Thanks, dice. So he says to Kent, he says, well, I see where this area is. He said, it's not all that far from my shop. He said, I'll have to really make sure things are well locked up at night. He said, I might even sleep in the shop for a few nights, just in case. And Kent says, well, I'm glad to make your acquaintance here, Mr. Parker. And he says, no, my first name is Parker. My last name is Peterson. He said, but I do have a lot of work to do here. So they leave the shop together, and they say their goodbyes on the street. And, of course, Parker hopes he'll see her again. We'll have to see how things go. So the day passes, and Parker goes back to his shop, and, he makes his few sales, and he does what he can. And then he tells his aunt that he has to go out on some business once it gets dark. Oh, I'm very worried about you, Parker. I don't want you out and getting in any trouble or any problems like that. And he says, oh, no, don't worry. And he goes and he uses his wall crawling to climb around these buildings in this area. He's trying to get a very high vantage point and see what's going on. And we're going to have him change into his outfit. Have him change. And there he is as his token. And tokens maybe aren't super exciting, but I think they film really well, so you can really tell who's who. So he is out on patrol here. And let's see what he sees. We're going to say on a 1 or a 2, he is give it a 30%, roughly a 33% chance. On a 1 or a 2, he is going to luck out and see what's going on right away. 2, okay. So he is watching, and he sees across the alley from where he is perched a small figure kind of skulking in the alley, and quickly go inside and quickly shut the door. So he knows something is going on inside this building over here. Let me just slide things over because that'll make more sense. And let's see. Let's give it a 50-50 shot if he sees anything here. 1, 2, 3 is good. 5, nope. So he is so focused on all this that he comes over to this building, and he's trying to see if he can climb up and see anything going on in here. So let's do his wall crawling here, which is a dexterity, so he gets a +3 on that. I don't think we need an effect dice for this right now. 20. Oh, he is silent. It's because actually it was a 23 total. He is silent, and he finds a window where he can see in. And what he sees in here is 4. Count them, 4 folks. Goblin-type folks. and they are working around a vat of some kind, that they are brewing something. And he notices that they take what they brew and they're putting it in these little containers shaped like pumpkins. And he has seen those before because one of the goblins similar to this, the other one happened to have wings, threw these pumpkin bomb kind of things at him before. And directing all this is a woman. I'll just have her as the little black people meeple thing here. I guess we need a cauldron. So that'll be our cauldron right there. And we'll put it this way in case they want to tip it over. We'll see. Directing all this is a woman with very silvery hair. And she's standing back and watching all. She's making the goblins do all the dirty work. But she is talking about, well, what he can hear her saying, what has to be added and all that. And let me just put down a couple of notes here for myself. So he is trying to make a decision about going in here. And I think he's going to go for it. So let's do his wall crawl again to see if we can, on a success, we'll give him the surprise. 10, okay. And he's adding +3 for his dexterity there. So he gets the surprise, and he swings in. He says, "Are you cooking supper without me?" And he is going to rather jump in and try and really bop one of the goblins there. Now, these the goblins work on mook rules, where they just work on their own. They just basically get one roll against him to hit, and he gets to hit them, because otherwise it's quite a bit to take care of. And these guys are there's a number of them, but it's not the end of the world. So he is just jumping in, just swinging at them. So he's using his super strength. His power skill dice for that is a D8. So let's see if he hits. A 5. Nope, 5. So he swings in, and he almost kind of embarrasses himself here. He is not able to do much of anything here. So let's see. They are going to turn. Someone's here, mistress. And they are going to bum rush him. And she is going to pick up one of the pumpkin bombs to throw at him. So they're going to just see what they can do. They're going to come in and kind of try to scratch at him. And he has 22 hit points because it's 20 plus your strength bonus, but it doesn't necessarily go up. So 10 is good enough to hit, and that's an 18, and she is throwing one of those pumpkin bombs. And that is a D8. 3. So she throws a pumpkin bomb, and it misses. All right, now on a 1, 2, 3, something else I have in mind is going to happen. Nope, doesn't happen this round. We'll have to see what happens here. So I believe the spider gets to go again. So let's see what he's going to try to do. He is going to try to ensnare some of those goblins if he can. And that's a D10. 15's good, yeah. So that's a 4. So there's some points I'm taking off here. So he does start to ensnare. I'm going to say he ensnares 2 of them. Now, they don't get multiple attacks anyway, but maybe it's just these 2 over here. They're gooping up, and they're laying on the floor, and they are not happy with all of this. But he doesn't get a second attack. She's going to throw another pumpkin bomb, and she is kind of scooping them up and trying to get away. 9, and I'm going to say she has a +1 on that for 7. Yeah, she throws a pumpkin bomb at him, and he gets pretty well hit with this. Okay. So they're now making a good bit of noise. So I'm going to up this to 1, 2, 3, 4. Something's going to happen. 4. Okay, good. I'm glad for that. Swooping in from the sky, like from the skylight, is a human-shaped figure. He's wearing a cape and some kind of outfit. And he swoops in here, and he nods to the spider, like out of professional courtesy. And now let's see if he gets to attack first. 1, 2, 3, he gets to attack first. 5, nope. So he's not going to attack this round. So spider will attack. Then we got to deal with any other problems. I think, again, he's going to use that ensnarement. Now he sees that this new person, and he's not sure what's going on. Let's see how our spider does here. Is that a 3 or a 13? It's a 3. Sometimes it's hard from this angle for me to see what's going on. So he misses on his ensnaring. So she sees this new person here swooping in on things and is, again, going to try for that. Throw one of those pumpkin bombs. And how does she do? 6. Okay, so, yeah, that's not good enough. That misses. Okay, well, I got to do the hit of these guys on the spider. I don't think I took care of that. 18. Oh, yep, they hit him. No, that's right. I did. That we don't need that. So let's see. Spider's round. Sometimes I lose track here. Sorry about that. Let's have him do another ensnare deal here, because he wasn't doing so good with fighting. Okay, it didn't go down the thing, but it landed. It has to land in here to count, but I'm going to count that because it did go down the there, and I was shaking them anyway. 4. Okay, good. So he ensnares these other 2, and we won't have to worry about them too much. And what she's going to do is she's going to throw. He goes next. That's right. So let's see what he's going to do. He is going to. So he's swooped in here, and he's going to try to use his super strength, not to knock her out, but maybe there's something metal here that he can snare her with. Okay. Let's see. Can he do that? 20. Look at that for 5. So he starts to wrap this around her, but doesn't fully get it. He hasn't totally taken her out of the picture. So this round, what she's going to do, so she's kind of hindered a little bit. She is going to take that and try to knock it over. And let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to say that's a D20, and she's going to need a 3 or better for effect to knock it over. Nope. So she tries to kick it over unsuccessfully. And our spider is going to try to ensnare her this round. And what's his ensnare dice is a D10. 19. Okay, 3 more points. So we're getting there. And so our tall, handsome, swoopy fellow who came in here, again, is using his super strength to try and, quickly find something and ensnare her so she can't get away. No, doesn't this round. So she's going to throw a pumpkin bomb, rather, at him, at the new fellow whose name we don't know yet. 18 does 5 points of damage to him. And she is going to try and, this round, she's not trying to damage anybody, but she's going to try and get away. But he has to go first, so let's see. Spider's going to go first. Ye old spider. Come on. 4. No, nothing. They're both having a little bit of a tough night here. Let's try that super strength again. 12 and 8. So she said, she's grunting, no, let me go, I give up. And he says, that's fine. What's going on here? And Spider figures, well, maybe this guy's a friend. He's not sure what he thinks about all this, but he does come over, and he says, yeah, are you behind all these robberies? And I've seen these pumpkin bombs before. And this fellow's, he perks up. He notices and has heard all this. He says, "Oh, really? Now let's see." She's going to talk, but this fella here, again, we don't know his name. We know he's a cape and very handsome, broad-shouldered fella. He's going to say, maybe you got involved in this, ma'am. Maybe you got involved in this and you didn't mean to. But, if you tell the truth, then maybe the authorities will go easy on you. And he's fairly charismatic, so that's a 13. So I'd say that's good enough. And she says, "Oh, yes, he was paying me, and then he threatened me that I had to keep working for him." And Spider says, "Who threatened you? Who are you working for?" She doesn't want to talk to him. But she does want to talk, she's scared of him maybe with the mask or thinks he's creepy. And she's wearing black clothing, all black clothing. Like I said, silver long hair, younger lady, but she will talk to him. And she says, "Oh, the great goblin, he has plans. But he said if I worked for him, that he wouldn't change me." And our Spider says, what do you mean change you? He's going to do something to the city. I'm not originally from here. I just moved here recently. He plans on doing something. Well, where is this going to happen? And she says, "I don't know. He didn't tell me all that. But somewhere where it would get over the whole city." Now let's see if Kent is now. I'm going to figure this out. Oops. Okay. 12. Like I said, it didn't go down the loop, but I think it should still count. It landed in there. 12. And he says to the Spider, says, "I may know the place, but we don't know the time." And she says, I don't either. But it's some sort of spell. Now, our Spider is an alchemist. So I'm going to say, with his alchemy, he may know a little bit something about spell components and spell timings. And let's see what he knows. 7 + 1 is 8. No, he's just not too sure on this. So I think they're not gonna get all that much information. This guy here says, "Well, I'll have to contact the authorities." And our Spider says, "Well, I'm not in really great, not on really great terms with them." And this fella says, 1 hour near the statue and the fountain. So the Spider takes that as a case of, that they probably should meet somewhere. Again, he knows where in an hour. And he is going to take his leave. And this fella is going to kind of get everything cleaned up here, get the authorities to come and march these goblins and this woman away. Who knows if we'll see her again. And he wants to know, "Well, what's your name, ma'am?" Let's see how his charisma is there. He's +2. 19. Oh, she's going to tell him her name is Phaeriss, is her name. And she's taken away by the town authorities, and I don't need to worry too much about that. So let's go to our fountain and our statue about an hour later. And I don't know what I have around to be a statue, so we'll just have to, let's see, well, this will work. It's something anyway. So there's a statue, a very famous statue, and a fountain around it. And hiding in the shadows, not very far from is our ye old Spider, Parker Peterson, and swooping in from the sky, floating down, right by the fountain here. He says, "Come out, friend." He said, "You have nothing to fear from me. And I suspect we're engaged in a similar mission here." So they come out, or Parker comes out, and he doesn't, of course, tell him his name. He says, "Well, what should I call you?" He said, you look familiar." He's thinking to himself, there was a fellow the fellow he met earlier the day, Kent, that Kent fellow was wearing some kind of bifocal, glasses to help his work and help his reading. So he says, well, you can call me visitor. He said, I'm not from around here. And Spider says, oh, well, some people think you're maybe a devil or an angel. He said, are you some kind of spirit? Remember, this is a medieval setting. And there's this kind of laughs. No, I'm just from another place. I don't even know a whole lot about it, he said, but that's why I have these abilities. He said, but I definitely want to use these abilities for good. He said, I think, on this, we could make a pretty good team, try to track this person down. So, they're trying to think about where this could be and how they, where this goblin might be operating out of, or where his next mission is, where his next move is going to be. But I think we're going to save that for next time, because I'm looking at our time and we're at about a half an hour here. I don't like these episodes to go too long. But again, I hope you'll watch the first episode. I'll have that linked below. I have a link to some other, like I said, some other medieval superhero games you can take a look at below. If you have time, you could check out Sharp Mountain Store on drivethrur and Lulu and Amazon, and all those links are below. Everything's in the show notes. You know that. But I just want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. We'll see you next time.